Hi, Flosstube. It's Arlene. It's Friday, June 16th, and welcome back to those who've been with me before, and welcome to those who might be finding me for the first time or are recent new people. I'm glad to be here with you. I am genuine when I say thank you and letting you know that I appreciate all of you out there in Flosstube community. When I hear other floss tubers talk about their appreciation and love of comments and love of interaction and the way this group works, I understand it. I get it because I feel the same way. It's genuine. Um, uh, my last video, which was 2 weeks ago, started on a rough note. I have been having a rough time the last couple of weeks on the personal and professional side. Uh, I've noticed a lot of you have been doing the 20 things to know about your needleworker, or 20 things about me, whatever the tag is, and um, I've just so appreciated uh, how open and honest, how many people have been sharing. Some of you have been so bravely open and honest. There have been at least three that I have heard this week that have really touched me. One in particular just really touched me. And I just want to say thank you. Just a genuine, honest thank you. And I just needed to start there. Um, I like focusing on the needlework world, and this world helps me out a lot. And I believe that's the case for lots of you as well. Um, uh, it's also been helping me a lot. I've been working on my new designs for my Etsy store. My goal, my hope, it's a goal. It's not a promise, it's a goal that some point by next week I will have some new designs to share with you that will be there. Um, it's something that keeps me going to work a little bit one way or the other on that every day, and I'm glad I have that. So I have a variety of stuff laid out here that I want to share with you. Once again, it's a little bit of everything. So I'm just gonna jump into my list. I'm gonna start with cross stitch. So the first thing is both a update as well as just showing of cross stitch, which is to let you know where I am with my own design. This is the flowers and swirls pattern that I showed you that you can find on my Etsy store. To me, it's an indication of what the last couple of weeks have been like, the fact that there really isn't as much stitching done as I would have liked. But this is where I am, and I'm trying to see. You can see where I am. I unrolled it a little bit for my scroll frame so you can see. And if you're wondering why I jumped around, well, maybe some of you can figure it out already. Yeah, I need to go get more thread. And that makes me want to ask the question. All right, I can't do this. That's as good as I'm going to get today. I mean, I knew I would need more of the purple, which is the plum color here. And the program that I use to create this design, it gives me the number of stitches for each color, and it's something I've been meaning to look into. But if any of you happen to have a good source, like something that you truly believe in, that helps you show how many typical X's you get out of thread, whether that's by the yard or even by the skein of DMC that easily could be converted with some math to anything else. I know there's thread usage charts out there. I've seen a couple. If you have a good one, if you could leave me a note in the comments of, oh, I've relied on such and such to help me figure out how many skeins of thread I need or something, that'd be great. It's just something I would love to use and start to have something to rely on to help leave for my patterns. Anyway, tomorrow I am headed for one of my monthly days with my lace group, and I'm going to take a detour for where I need to go for the lace group to go to my needlework store to pick up thread so I can get crack in on this and not have to jump around so much and be able to really get moving. So once again, this is a pattern of my own and this is just the computer generated version. This is what it's starting to look like, and it's getting there. But there you go. So that was going to be it for the cross stitch portion of today's Flosstube. But through the love being a part of many of your Flosstube worlds, just a couple days ago, I was watching, or maybe it was just yesterday, I can't even think now. I was watching Bendy Stitchy, Michelle. And she was showing some of her thrift store finds, and she showed I wrote her in the comments and she replied, it's like a pillow sized piece of fabric that she had purchased. She had never seen it before and she wasn't sure what she was going to do, although she had some ideas. And my comment was, wow, I not only had seen that, I had actually had something like that and stitched on it a long time ago. And that maybe I'd have to, because I had, despite the fact that it was an important project, a big project a long time ago, I had kind of forgotten about it. So I'm glad I got reminded by her video, and I just decided I'm going to add that one into my list of what I wanted to share with you all today. So in my beginning videos, I had showed you my 3 babies as I talked about them, 3 cross-stitch babies that I had done when I was high school into college. And when I was in college, and this is my memory of the evolution of this project, I was finishing up that 3rd baby and I needed my next big project to do. And I exactly how this evolved, I'm not sure, but these are the pieces that I remember. At that time, I liked to collect quotes, and I just had like a book that I kept quotes in. And I remember thinking I want to do something with these quotes, and maybe I could stitch them. And there was a store in my hometown where I grew up. I think I even had mentioned it here because I think somebody in the comments had remembered it too. It was called the Craft Basket in Brookfield, Connecticut, and it was kind of like what a Michael's is today, although unfortunately it's long out of business, and I think it actually got pushed out of business when Michael's came to town. Anyway, I can picture going to the Craft Basket, and I know I had purchased at some point in those years 1 or 2 leaflets of alphabets and a leaflet of borders. And I had this idea that I was going to make quotes, or I was going to graph out quotes and put borders around them. And I didn't know what final format this was going to be in, but I must have been probably maybe home on spring break, gone to the Craft Basket, saw this, it's the fabric that Michelle has, but it's a larger size, and I had like this aha moment, and I knew what I was going to do, which was to make a cross-stitch blanket / quilt, it doesn't quite count as a quilt, that was going to be filled with quotes. And this hung, you'll see that I had sewn in these like, to put a bar in and hang it like a quilt. And I had this hanging in a number of different, in my later college years and in a number of like adult living places. When I moved to where I live right now, I've been here almost 9 years. I guess I made the conscious decision that it wasn't that I'd grown out of these quotes. It was just time to not have it hanging anymore. So I haven't really looked at it in 9 years. But when I took it out, gosh, I realized how relevant so many of these quotes are. So I'm trying to give you the big view of what this looks like. I did every other block. I thought doing them on every block was too much. And I'll come up close in a minute. There are 27 quotes. So there's 9, there were 9, like each, the lettering of each main, like there was a main color, red, pink, orange, green. So 9 main colors, and then I repeated those 9 main colors, and then I repeated them again. And I mean, now I could look at it and say it's quite a hodgepodge of colors, but at the time it had a rhyme and reason to the coloring. And so you could see it's quite the variety of colors and styles. There were literally, I think, pretty sure there's literally 27 different fonts and 27 different borders that I used on this. When I finished it all, I needed a way to kind of display it. Got some fabric, sewed like this border, and then just a solid border, and then a backing border. There's batting in here. And I had put these guys on so that I had a wooden pole so that I could hang it from this. I know I spent exactly a year doing the stitching. I had the graph paper for all of these. I couldn't find. I can't believe I threw out the graph paper. I think I know where the charts are of this. So I don't remember exactly. I think I started the stitching even before I finished all the graphing, although I probably picked out which quotes I was going to use. I know I spent exactly a year because I know I started the first stitching when I was working. Students could volunteer to work for reunion, which was like the week after commencement, and I did that for 2 years. And I started, and they always said there would be lots of downtime, like there'd be hours upon hours where you might literally be sitting at a desk doing nothing but answering questions every once in a while. So they said, bring a book or bring things to do. And I know one of the things I brought was my stitching. So when I worked reunion one summer, I started this. And it was when I was working reunion the following summer is when I finished this. So I know the stitching part of it, I spent a full year on. So I don't know if I should do this quickly or not for you to see the quotes. I was just reading through them today, and it's amazing how many of them are still so relevant to the world and to my life. A lot of them are about friendship, and that gives you a sense of college life and the importance of that. A friend won't get in your way unless you happen to be going down. If you worry about what might be and wonder about what might have been, you will ignore what is. Doing this upside down is really hard, people. Some questions are best left unanswered, and some answers are best left unquestioned. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. A person never knows how tall a shadow she'll cast until she stands up. Your goals don't start in the brain, they start in the heart. Good leaders are scarce, so I'm following myself. You can outdistance that which is running after you, but not what is running inside you. Life is a journey, from childhood to maturity, and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then, perhaps, to wisdom. Some people are afraid of the dark, and some people are afraid to leave it. A friend is someone who tries to pick you up when you fall, and if she can't, she'll lay down beside you and listen. If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. Some of them are famous, well-known quotes that you could find, and others are not necessarily that. If logic tells us that life is a meaningless accident, don't give up on life, give up on logic. This is Emerson? Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. No, it's a poem. It's I'll look it up. Everyone has the right to be wrong. Sometimes the best way to hold on to something is to let it go. Life is like a jigsaw puzzle, but you don't have the picture on the front of the box to know what it's supposed to look like. And sometimes you're not even sure if you have all the pieces. I still believe that one, definitely. A writer's work is never finished, it is simply abandoned. Many of us spend our whole lives waiting for our ship to come in. The problem is, we never sent one out. Don't be afraid of your life ending, be afraid of it never beginning. What you are afraid to do is a clear indicator of the next thing you need to do. We truly reach our dreams when we learn to soar with our own wings. A person who insists on knowing the A person who insists on knowing the future is a person who finds the past meaningless and the present empty. If you stick your head in the sand, one thing is for sure, you'll get your rear kicked. If you don't like the direction the river is flowing, don't jump in. When your dreams turn to dust, vacuum. And it's still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it is best to hold hands and stick together. And this one, if you're familiar with the book, All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, Robert Fulghum, that I know that one comes from there. Anyway, so Michelle and others who might be interested, this fabric, I want to say it might be 14 count. I would need to get out a ruler and measure it, but it was an intriguing thought of, I could put all these quotes together in one place, and this is what I did with it. It's like I guess it's called baby quilt size, but it was a wall hanging that I had in many places in my life for a long time. So a lot of back stitching, but also cross stitching, and so there's the cross stitching part of today's Flosstube. Gonna move on to some other things. So I wanted to show you a little canvas work piece. I think it was the last Flosstube. I showed you a big piece that I did from needle, okay? Curdy Biggs. I think she does this every year, designs an ornament-like thing. That's why it's called Christmas 2012, because I think there's one called Christmas 2013, 2014, so I'm not exactly sure. What I liked about this design, it was small, number one, and the materials needed were very minimal in that, and she has 3 different colorways showing, not that I cared about her colorways. You needed some canvas, you needed some Krynic for the metallic color, and you needed some you could do DMC floss. She also has some, I guess this is silk. This, so, gray canvas, silver Krynic, or like gray silver Krynic, dark silver, and a blue, this is just DMC floss. And I made this was actually sort of my practice one. I made a second one that I know I gave as a gift, intended to be an ornament. It's all done one piece of canvas that is then sort of sewn up into a box-like shape. So the edges, and inside of here there's a block, like balsa wood kind of block, and a little bit of batting. I mean, it's a great project. I liked it because for being a counted canvas work piece, the materials, the threads were pretty minimal. the stitching was neat. There's only basically 3 different sides, and they just get repeated, so that this side is repeated there, and that side there, and whichever side I haven't shown you yet, that one is there. I think you could have even flipped the colors, but with using this Kreinik, it really doesn't make sense to try and do what you see in blue with Kreinik. It just doesn't work. But it was a nice little project. So if you'd like to kind of dip into Threedle's work, you could go on her website and see that she has these small ornament size pieces that are, I haven't done any of the others. This was the only one I've ever done of her small pieces, but I liked it. And like I said, I know I made one for a gift. I know I've contemplated making others for gifts because it's the right size. It takes the right amount of time to do as a gift. For someone who appreciates it. That's always been my criteria for giving gifts of needlework kind. So there you go. Moving on in my list. So the next type of needlework I wanted to share with you all is, well, the title on here says metal thread embroidery. Silk and metal embroidery, gold work is kind of where I'm going here right now. So I have always been amazed and loved the look of gold work. If you have seen books, and I've got a number of books, websites, there's some beautifully stunning things with gold work. Some pieces are completely done with the gold work materials, which I'll show you in a minute. But it seems to me, more often than not, present day gold work is really often some combination of usually silk thread with gold work. I had the opportunity to take a class, and I don't do too many classes, but I took a class. This was a woman named Margaret Kinsey, and this was an EGA group that it was a 2-day class, and I did this piece. What you see, the pink and, well, and the green here is silk thread. What kind of silk? Silk thread of some kind. But all the other shiny stuff is all different kinds of gold work threads. And I'm going to put this really close to the camera to see if you can pick up that there's all different kinds of stuff going on when you do gold work. Like these guys right here. The little piece of gold stuff is very thick, very stiff. And it's like a coil. And you gently pull out the coil so that you can stitch the pink thread in between the pulled out. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like I'm not speaking very clearly today. So bear with me here. I'm trying. I love doing these Flosstube videos, and there's some days that last time when I did this, it really helped me out a lot to be doing it and to know that I was going to upload it and be able to have some interactions with folks, and that's why I'm doing this right now. I feel like my brain is fuzzy right now. There's no other way to put it. So if I'm not speaking too clearly, please just bear with me here. So if you've never used gold work materials, which I hadn't, I'd read a lot about them because I have a few gold work books, and I was intrigued with these materials that I know cost a lot, and that you only use like precisely what you need. Like this stuff that is very shiny. I don't know if you can tell the dimension or the thickness, how it's off the fabric. There's padding underneath, so there are some layers of, I don't know, some thread, and then you carefully lay the precise amount that you need there. These are beads. There's some beads in there, but there's also little pieces of other kinds. I don't remember the names of all the different kinds of stuff that's in here. It's all got special terms. You can look up information about gold work if you're interested and intrigued. I'm so glad I took the class. I'm glad I finished the piece. I, did my own little framing job. There's nothing fancier. This is a piece of Congress cloth, which is that combination of a little bit not as stiff as canvas work, canvas. And then this is a piece of felt, nice cheap Michael's frame. I had finished this. I'm glad I did it. And it also really taught me that as much as I love the beauty of the pieces and some of the things I've seen in the books, it's not, to me, for me, a satisfying type of needlework to do. And that's because to do all the stuff that was the gold work part of it, like not the pink and the green stitching, not that basic layer of stitching, but the beading, I've done beading before. But to do all the other things in here, I had to really be set up in a different way. Like I couldn't sit in my normal stitching area using my frame and my stand. I had to like sit at a table or basically have a spot where I could keep these little clips of this piece and that piece and measure out, oh, I need this amount and I need to clip that amount. And it wasn't the same flow that most of my stitching allows me. It wasn't to me, this is me, a relaxing way of stitching. And so, I mean, this is just one thing that I took from this project. Again, so appreciative that I had this experience. I have something I got even before this class, a kit, a gold work kit I purchased, spent some money on. I should do this at some point. I keep thinking I will. It's not exactly high on the to-do list because I know I can't quite sit on the couch in my comfy way. It's going to require just sort of a different setup to be able to make it right. I know it's beautiful, and this, you don't even really get the full effect of it unless you see things in person. Or I may have mentioned this in other videos. If you have never seen Mary Corbett's website, Needle and Thread, do pop over. She's got some beautiful things, and one of the things she is well known for is her gold work. She's got amazing tutorials, all kinds of stuff, and she could give you even a better idea of what gold work is like. So anyway, this was my project of silk and gold work, and I'm glad I had the opportunity. I don't know how much of this will ever be in my future, but I can still enjoy the books and enjoy the pictures and maybe someday. Looking at my list. Okay, the next thing I wanted to share with you, in the ways that I have shared that sometimes I just get really intrigued with something and do research and just want to learn more and more and more. This project was one of those kinds of things. So, in my math world as a math teacher, there's a whole folder of research, and I just pulled out some of the papers. A number of years back, I had been doing, it was totally math related. I was doing it was in a math book. I saw this intriguing picture, and I was like, that looks amazing. And the picture at the time attributed it to something by Leonardo da Vinci. And that wasn't quite accurate. Took quite a bit of research because I was so intrigued. I'm like, I have never seen Da Vinci do something like that. I'm no Da Vinci expert, mind you. The reason it was in a math book is that it was in an area called knot theory, which is about topology. This is not the book that I'm referring to because that book, which I'm pretty sure I know which one it is deeply buried in a box, and I just wasn't in the mood to dig it out. But so like this is a page from a math book where there was some information about topology and some basic information about knots, and here it's illustrated by some historical, this is a Celtic knot design. And so picture a math book that there's something like this. There's some introduction to knot theory, and they illustrate it with some historical thing. And instead of this, the historical thing, and now this is a larger picture, but the historical thing looked like this. And I was like, wow, I want to learn more about that. So, what this took me down a trail of fascination, and what that was actually, it was probably more likely this one. And you could see Vinci there, Leonardo Vinci Academy. Um, Simply put, there are a series of 6 of these, and they are prints that come from the artist Albrecht Dürer, Durer. If you like this book that I got, this must have been an exhibit. He did all kinds of stuff. Even these knots are not typical of his work. He was, if I'm remembering correctly, like a student of Leonardo's. Just a brief little thing. So there's some question of whether these were originally Da Vinci's and he copied them, were they inspired by Da Vinci's work, and so on. But in any case, these were prints that were made by Dürer, and he was unquestionably the leading printmaker of Europe. And the knots, these 6 knots, they were made around 1506, 1507. So what was one picture in a book, with a few Google searches, I learned was one of a series of 6. I was intrigued enough to do blown up, this is all things I had in this folder. I did blown up versions because one thing that stuck with me in that very first book is they said knots, part of the knot theory math, were, by definition, knots were one continuous loop. And I had a problem with that definition, or rather, with the picture being part of the little essay, because my eyes started to follow it, and follow it enough to say, I don't think that's a continuous loop. And what I did, again, I don't know which one, let's just say it was this one in the original book, okay? I got large enough, or as large as I could do on 8.5 by 11 paper, of these 6 knots. And this is with colored pencils. Give me a second. I took one colored pencil, started somewhere, and with like a light board so I could see through, followed it till I came back to where I started. And you could see for this one, it took 6 different lines to create the whole print. Here's this one, only took 2. It only took 2 lines to make the whole print. This one took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but some of those were even repeated, so there's no way that that was one continuous loop. Same thing here. This one had 7, with a lot of them repeated. This one had 8, with a lot of them repeated. I think this is the last one. You guys could keep track if you really want. Had 6. There are copies of these prints. I know the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. I found it on their website. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, the MFA in Boston. I know those museums have at least some, if not all 6, or copies of all 6 in the United States. There might be other museums, there might be in other places. Again, they were prints, so there were more than one. And I did just a few years ago got to see at least one set in person, which was very cool. Anyway, it was the kind of thing that inspired me, especially because in some of the reading, the question of what were they for? And there was, wait, now I got to find the reason I have that piece of paper out. Although the function the knots were meant to serve is a matter of some controversy, the prevailing opinion is that they represent designs to be used for embroidery. Well, you can guess how intrigued I was when I saw that line. So what became, I'm just intrigued, and I don't know where I'm going with this, personal research became could I turn this into needlework? So what does this get called in terms of needlework? Well, I guess you would say embroidery, because I made 2 of the 6 knots. And the way this is done is it's completely thread that is couched on top of the fabric, meaning this is a Kreinik metallic. It's like a dark brown, copper brown. I thought that was like the idea of the copper plate. And I traced with a pencil lightly, because I was afraid to do any washing out of anything afterwards. I traced the design on here. I took, it might have been a number 8, either number 4 or number 8 braid, started laying it out, just sort of lay the thread on top, and then using a very, very fine, the finest that you can get, well, you could get a blending filament, but you could also get cord in Kreinik, and use that to stitch through. Like, the only thing that's on the back is the end result of me using that fine thread. I'm not describing this very well. If you know what couching is, great. If you don't, you can look it up or ask me and I'll do a demo next time. I don't remember, I think I did this one first. And I really liked it. I was like, this is cool. I had the fabric all prepared. I was going to do all 6 of them. And this was going to be my version of the der knots. I did the second one. Well, there are names for there seems to be pretty consistently, they are called first knot, second knot, third knot in the artworks on museum websites. I don't remember what number. These were the order I did them in. I did this one. And this one, you might be able to tell, is significantly more complex than I started with the one that had the least complexity to it. And then I moved on to this one. And my enthusiasm for the project started to go down. It was just more complex. I completed this one. I was pleased that I did. But I acknowledged that I did what I set out to do. I proved that I could reproduce Durer's knots on fabric with thread. Obviously, I'd proved that it's not one continuous thing. You do need to start and stop. Will I ever do the other 4? To me, I'm going to say it's unlikely. I have the thread and fabric kind of set aside for it. I'm just pleased with what I have, and I just think they look pretty cool. So I just thought you'd be interested in seeing something very different. So these are my Durer knots. And again, it's not the mathematical definition of knots, but they're what they're called in the knot world, or in the artistic world. There you go. Okay, I am going to move on to some lace-related things, and hope lots of you stay with me, but I also acknowledge that some of you only come for stitching, and that's fine. But I'm going to start with something that has come up from a number of people in the comments, which is another type of lace called tatting. And this has happened more than once when I'll talk to someone and mention about doing bobbin lace, and someone will say, oh, is that the same as tatting? Or some, and it isn't, but tatting is a type of lace. I'm going to show you. This is a little tatted doily. That's another way to put it. This is one of the first tatting pieces that I did. And how I came about tatting, I'd never heard of it, never seen anyone do it before, was this book. I don't know if you've ever seen it. A long time ago, it's like my first or second year out of college, I think I picked this book up from the library. Yeah, it was a library book. It's just curious. I was like looking in the needlework section, and I was just like, interesting. I'll see what they have in here. And I want to say it's got to be from the 70s, the copyright, just as you look at some of the pictures that are in here. I think there may be updated versions of it. The original copyright, 1979. And, just flip through it or something. And there was something about the getting to the tatting page that I was like, wow, I'd never seen that before. And there were instructions, just this element of instructions. And I'm going to say, I'll go ahead and say, this is like before the internet, before the idea of, oh, I'll go on YouTube and learn how to do it and watch people do it. There were some simple projects. And I was just so intrigued. And unlike, like knitting needles, I didn't even know if you could still buy. Sorry, that's something else. I didn't know if you could even buy these things called tatting shuttles. I remember going to a store that was probably either a Michael's or a store like a Michael's. I might have even brought the book with me, or maybe had it written down on a piece of paper. Do you sell tatting shuttles? Somebody looked it up on a computer. Yep, they're over there in aisle 12, or they were with the knitting needles, and I was like, okay. And sure enough, they were at least the ones that I purchased were like from the same brand as some of the knitting needles. I'm sure these are not like the high level knitting needles. Tatting, these have a little mirror thing going on, so you are getting reflection. These are tatting shuttles. There's all kinds you can get. These kind, which I like, have a hook on the end, which you use when you're tatting. You can get plastic kind. You could get highly decorated kinds. To tat, there's shuttle tatting, and there's also needle tatting. Now, I have learned, well, after this, I had learned that supposedly needle tatting is supposed to be easier than shuttle tatting, but I didn't know that because this book didn't have needle tatting in it. Anyway, I remember taking these they were only a few bucks. I was willing to buy it, and I bought some. It might have even been the same purple thread that I eventually made this project from. I bought whatever was suggested, and again, it was minimal expenditure to do this out. And I remember studying the heck out of these pictures and trying so hard to make this work. And I couldn't get it wasn't doing what, because tatting is in effect a knotted lace. You are in effect making little knots. And it's not the same knots that you would make to, tie your shoelaces, but it is a type of knot. But if you do it wrong, you end up with a knot that is a knot, and it stays where you don't want it to stay. And that's what was happening to me. And there was a night that I was like trying to fall asleep, and I was thinking about, and all of a sudden I had this, oh my God, that's what you're supposed to do. This little like flick thing. And I remember getting out of bed and getting out the little baggie and doing it. I'm like, oh my God, that's the way it works. And so I had this like epiphany moment of, this is how tatting works. And so I can remember making this. I remember making little things that I would spray some stiffener on and gave to friends as ornaments. And over the years, it's never been a major craft of mine. It is the perfect travel project for me, because like something this size, I don't even need it to be this big. I mean, you can literally take everything you need for a tatting project in a pretty small container. And that's pretty convenient. I don't do that much tatting, but it's convenient to have around when I want to have a good travel project. I also took these out. They flew off the table. If you have ever been in a Joann's and have seen, I know my Joann's sell them in this format. Lisbeth thread, and it says tat, knit, or crochet like a dream. And if you've never known what to do with this, tatters love Lisbeth threads. They come in different sizes, and there was a point where I was just really into, now I'm missing one of them. Hold on, it's on the floor somewhere. There was a point that I was really intrigued with the different sizes and trying to learn comparisons. Oh, this is going to be really annoying because now I had it all lined up and now I'm missing something. So Lisbeth is a thread, as with some others, that the higher the number, the smaller the thread. So the same motif, and I never finished off the ends, so you just got to bear with me. And the color of this thread is Café au lait, which I know you can't at all appreciate, but it's like a variegated thread. Lisbeth has all kinds of cool variegated and solids. Usually you can't find the variety in a Joann's, but at lace events, you can get the variety. I'm sorry, I'm still looking. Oh, here's one of them. Am I still missing one? So here we go. This is a particular motif in size 10 thread. Here's that same motif in size 20 thread. Here's that same motif in size 40 thread. And here is that same motif in size 80 thread. Now, wouldn't it be cool if I could spread them all out at the same time? Okay. So I remember this was like a little experiment for myself, just to kind of get the visual of how sizes of threads can affect your tatting. So I thought you might be interested in seeing, well, okay, all nice, interesting, Arlene, but what does it really look like? So would you like to see some tatting? All right, I'm going to try and do a demo here. Give me a moment to get a little bit more set up. So that, okay. Oh, I forgot to point out what this project is. All right, I'll show you the book where it comes from in a minute. It looks just like a long piece. The end result, should it be, if I do this. Oh, this might work. The end result are these like flower motifs, but the way they get built up is I did a whole row of 1/2 of them, and now I'm going back to do the other half. Tatting is made up, simply put, of rings and chains. And so right here where I left off, right here, this is a ring. This is a chain. When you're doing a ring, you only need to use 1 shuttle. When you're doing a chain, you need 2 shuttles. You need to connect these various pieces in various ways. And these guys right here are called picots. And sometimes you use them to connect to other parts. In this case, a ring got connected to a previous ring through that picot. So what I want to demonstrate for you is how to make a ring. So give me a moment to kind of get myself settled here. And the logistics of how do you know which one to use and what, okay. Again, if you're really, really interested, there's ways to learn how to tat, and you could do it. Oh, by the way, that book, of course, this is not the library book that I had from years ago. I remember renewing that book multiple times, but obviously I eventually returned it. That book that was in my hands moments ago, I picked up many years later at a used book sale, and it was sort of like, I just need to have that for the sake of having it. And the phone is ringing now, and I am just ignoring it. Can we just ignore the phone ringing? Okay. So, I'm trying to do this so that you can see what's going on. So when I am tatting, it's all done in hand. I am wrapping the thread around my hand. So I gotta make sure you guys can see. Okay, so here I am using this hand, wrapping the thread around my hand. Oh. The shuttle's in this hand. I'm going under and then over. And what I have just done is created a knot right there. Now it's got a name. I'm trying to remember what it's a blah 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 knot, and I don't remember what it's specifically called. I should have looked up the terminology, but again, depending on your level of curiosity, there's lots more you could explore on your own. This pattern, I just have the pattern memorized at this point. I know I needed 2 of those knots there, and then I need to connect to this ring. So I am going to put the hook, I hope you can see this, the hook through the picot. I pull that thread until it comes through, kind of loosen my other fingers so that I get enough room. And I pull that thread through. And now what I've started as the ring is already connected to the previous ring. I'm going to do another knot there. Double stitch. It's a double stitch knot. There we go. I need to do another double stitch knot, but I'm going to leave an extra little bit of thread there. And by leaving that extra little bit of thread, I'm creating a picot. Now, I admit, I just left too much thread. That's a big picot. But you know what? I'm usually not doing this in front of a camera for an audience, so we can all accept it ain't gonna be perfect. But you know what? My tatting is not perfect. I've never taken a class. I know if a teacher saw me, there's probably so many things that is wrong with my technique. All right, so I know that I've done all the double stitches that are needed for this ring. And what you then do is you release those extra threads. All of this, that circle of thread that you see, I'm going to tug here, and that is going to pull up on itself. It's going through, so you have to sort of pull gently, and it is forming into, see it right here, it's forming into a ring. And I'll tighten it up a little bit more, and there's a ring. Now, it's a little funky because I was doing this in front of a camera, but that's the basic idea. When you're working with a chain, you're using the same motions, but instead of wrapping the thread from one shuttle around your hand like this, instead use the weight of gravity. I wrap it around, I use my pinky finger. This is another shuttle that's hanging from my pinky, and I would do my double stitches right here. So there's a little bit of a tatting demo. If you could, I don't know how much you were able to see there, but hopefully it was enough that you either are like, okay, I can say I've seen some tatting now, or you're thinking, okay, I'm intrigued, I'll go look up some YouTube videos or whatever. I lost my little paper with the, oh, here's the list. Last thing. So a brief thing about bobbin lace today. Another thing that's come up in comments and in messages, which has been great, is people have been interested in bobbin lace. And how do you get started? And what directions could you point me in? And I just wanted to talk briefly about that. Because the big difference between starting something like bobbin lace and starting, say, cross stitch is about the stuff that's needed. If you wanted, or if you knew somebody who was interested in starting cross stitch, you yourself could probably offer them a little bit of thread, a little piece of fabric, a beginner pattern, no problem. And at the worst, you could send them to a place like Michael's, and with it $5, maybe $10, they could get a beginner's kit, and with very little money, just try out and see if they're interested. And then sure, they could go down the rabbit hole and spend lots of money, but that they could try it out in a minimalistic way. The trouble with bobbin lace is that you need some of the very basic things you need are not easy to acquire and cost money. So that's where I so want to support anyone who's interested, but I also don't want to, have folks spending a bunch of money and then realizing I'm not so interested. There are a couple of websites that have lots of information for beginners, like people who are genuinely trying to learn on their own and who feel confident that they can try and learn some stuff on their own. And I will put those in the space below. So if you're interested in looking at those. I also got out a few books from the library. I'm a big library person. If you are not, go get your local library card. Like, take advantage of your local library. I knew that my local library system had a couple of bobbin lace books. They're not ones that I personally use, but I knew that they were worth just showing, so I got them from the library. This is what's known as an oldie but goodie. Doris Southard wrote this book. I think it's from the late 70s. And it was known as one of the first books, 1977, this is a reprint from 92. It was one of the first books that was written to literally be how you could learn bobbin lace without a teacher. There is the challenge of, there's plenty of information, and again on the websites I'll mention, about how you can make a pillow, how getting pins is not a big deal. Thread is not a big deal. The biggest deal is about bobbins, because these to do bobbins, or to have bobbins to start bobbin lace, you would really need at least like a dozen, or really like 2 dozen. I mean, and to get decent bobbins, I mean, you can't even really find too much in the way of cheap bobbins. One thing, oh, sorry, I should have started out by saying this. If you go online and search bobbin lace kit, you will probably pretty easily find, I know it's sold on Amazon, it's sold in many places, a bobbin lace kit. It is sometimes marketed as a laces kit. It is also marketed as something else. Do not waste your money on that kit. Simply put, if you are finding a place that is offering a bobbin lace kit that is under $50, and it is not from a lace supplier, it is some version of this kit, and it is a waste of money. And if you want to understand why, I don't need to go into the details. You can go to the description on Amazon, and maybe I'll even put that link below, and just read the reviews. People talk about how the pillow falls apart because they use the wrong kind of foam stuff. The bobbins they include don't have the right weight. I mean, it's literally a waste of your money. Don't buy that kit. It just becomes frustrating. Among lace circles, it's talked about as the horror kit. Don't get the horror kit. Don't let anybody you know get the horror kit. So the trouble is, when you're starting bobbin lace, is, well, how do you find bobbins without spending a whole lot of money? In the ideal world, you find yourself connected, or you find some local lace group, and you say, hey, I'm kind of curious, I'm interested, could I come join you guys? Does anyone have some materials that I can borrow? Could someone teach me for a lesson or two, so I can see if I'm interested before I invest some money in some real stuff? I know if you live near me in central New Jersey, my lace group would welcome you with open arms. Our last lace meeting, we had somebody who was just like that. She had found out about it. We meet at a library. She had found out about us from the library, and she came. Now, I don't know if she's going to be back. She seemed to enjoy herself for a couple of hours last month. But that's the best way to get a sense of whether you want to invest in it. Now, if you can't, there are some suggestions on how to find bobbins or make something that will work for you, again, in some websites. So where I was going is, you might not even have to buy a book, because you might be able to find something in a local library. So this book I know was in my local library. And this is another book, and I would even recommend this book more than this book. This one is color pictures. This one, I actually was surprised. I didn't even realize it's 2007, and I thought it was a little older than that, so it's nice. I was very impressed with this when I looked at it from the perspective of, could this help a beginner? That really this could be something that a dedicated, I really want to understand more. And again, I found this in my library system. I was shocked when I went to get these books that I found this one, and this one's even more recent, 2010. It may say a step-by-step guide. I wouldn't quite call this for the beginner. I'm determined to learn this on my own. That's me. I say do the search of bobbin lace in your card catalog and see what comes up. Anyway, I'll put some more suggestions for websites down below in the comments. I didn't want this to go on as long as it did, and once again, it went on long. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for everyone who has been so kind and interested. Once again, I'll share with you my Etsy store and the patterns that are there now. And like I said, I am aiming for next week. I will do a video when I have new patterns to share with you. So the next time you see me, it will hopefully be with some new designs. I appreciate all the support, and I look forward to the next time I see you all. Thanks so much.